The Power Trading Hour with your host, David White. Call now, toll free at 1-877-927-6648 or internationally at 727-873-7618. Now, David White.
And welcome all to another excellent edition of the Power Trading Hour. As always, we come to you at the appointed time.
The following takes place between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m.
So what do we have going on today? Well, not a whole lot other than we hurry up and wait for Powell speaking. I think a lot of people are whistling past the graveyard that he's going to do anything that is remotely bullish and not hawkish. You know, I'm pretty sure that he doesn't want the stock market taking off or home prices taking off yet again. It's a lot about slowing everything down, but everybody just doesn't want to believe it. When everybody believes it, I think we could probably have some kind of low in the markets, but there's just not much there. When we get to options, they've been betting on lower. So I don't know if it's a train strike or something else, but they haven't really blinked for about 5 days on thinking that we're headed more toward the area of 380 on the SPYs or lower part of that. Now, there may be some kind of meeting in the middle, but that's about it. But, yeah, I think everybody now is waiting whether to see Congress in their lame duck session does anything. They did come back in yesterday and didn't look like there was a whole lot of impotence to get anything done on the lame duck part of this. So maybe somebody that knows the train business much better than I can call in and tell us all about it. But I think last I heard we had 3 of the 12 unions for the trains thinking that they wouldn't sign on. Not exactly sure. I haven't found a good enough article that says what the difference is or what they're hanging out for, only that we've got calls for the Congress to actually impose a settlement in this. This doesn't sound to me like there's probably a lot of folks on either side of the aisle that are thinking that that's a good idea. But maybe cooler heads will prevail. 877-927-6648. Email me. That's EEL, E-L-L, the new email, EEL mail, at path@tfnn.com. And, of course, you can always put a message in the den. And on a quiet day like this, a good time to ask any kind of burning question. I will probably have some ointments or lotions that will help with that. But let's go ahead. The first thing I wanted to do is look at Apple because they tend to be in the news a bit too much lately. There is a double gap for Apple, and that exists at about 139, just under 139. So I would say that that would be the first spot that you could possibly find maybe some support, or you would probably want to go long on support. You did gap up on the 10th of October. You did so with 118 million shares. It's not bad, 56 million, 57 million shares down today. But again, my guess is that there will probably be some kind of washout between now and Friday, and it'll be short and sweet and set a low, and that low will probably be about 139 in Apple. Other things going on. Microsoft, down about half volume of yesterday so far. Support would be about 328 on Apple, where it's on Microsoft, where its gap is. there isn't a whole lot to push higher. There also isn't a whole lot to push lower. Another one with the 10th of November gapping higher on 46 million shares. You've got about 10.2. So is it horribly bearish here? No. But my guess is that everybody will want to try to wash people out before fund buying with anything that Powell actually says. Okay, what else do we have here? Question about the TLT from Jack. I actually know Jack. Okay. You've had very light volume the last 3 days. This is a bigger bounce in a downtrend. You did have lighter volume testing that 94 level. You're back up here. But I would say this is where the rubber meets the road, and you're going to have a huge amount of supply from 104 and lower. You've got a little tombstone doji out here today. Not much volume. But, it's hard to see anything going on here that would make a great difference. I wanted to look at the dollar real quick. Okay. Forex and DX. 106, 106.61 and a half. We have there. Not much to say about that. Certainly, you've got to look at today, or the last 24 hours is really the push higher. But, 106.10. If you would have asked 10 years ago if you'd ever see this kind of movement in the dollar, most people would have said no. It moved, like a nickel in a day. And they thought that was huge. So not much going on in there. Let's do a little bit of history, and we'll come back. We'll be looking at a great deal more in the way of charts after the break.
Then it's all just a little bit of history repeating.
On this day in 1972, Atari introduces their first product, Pong, which would become the world's first commercially successful video game. The popularity of Pong sparked the beginning of the video game industry, with Atari being the leader in both arcade and video game industries throughout the early 1980s. And, of course, my brush with fame in meeting Nolan Bushnell, who was really the guy that made them a household name in the later part of the 70s and left in the around 1980, 81, wasn't it? Something like that. And, of course, that was probably the first dot-com bubble, or maybe the first echo of it 20 years before it would come yet again. We've got one more question. We'll talk about that, and that is the deal with Chevron and Venezuela when we return, and what that means for them and the United States. We'll be back in a minute.
Currencies, commodities, and bond markets are as important as ever right now with how they're driving the volatility in equity markets across the globe, which is why it's a great time to try out Teddy Kegstad's Tiger Forex Report. Teddy Kegstad breaks down the Forex markets every Monday using his 30-plus years of experience as a trading veteran of futures, Forex, stocks, and options. Teddy releases his weekly Tiger Forex Report every Monday morning with coverage of all the major currency pairs, including the dollar index, the euro dollar, pound dollar, dollar Swiss, dollar yen, as well as many more, and he also has weekly coverage of the crude oil market and the 30-year T-bonds, as they both influence Forex markets tremendously. When you sign up for the Tiger Forex Report, you also gain instant access to Teddy's 60-minute webinar archive he just hosted, Forex Strategies and Fundamentals, What is Behind the Tiger Forex Report. For all the details and to start your 30-day Tiger Forex Report subscription today, visit the front page of TFNN.com. TFNN, educating investors.
Are you grinding in the market, but seeing little to no return? Or are you a successful trader, simply looking to make your job a little easier? Learn to take the path of least resistance with David White's powerful trading newsletter. David White is an accomplished trader whose deep understanding of technology and the markets allows him to consistently find and share winning trades. Support and resistance define the ranges in which stocks trade. By understanding these trading ranges, David White is able to find the path of least resistance. David White's trading newsletter, The Path of Least Resistance, is delivered daily before the markets open to make every trading day an easy win. Visit TFNN.com today and subscribe to David White's Ultimate Trading Newsletter for $119 a month. And try all of our newsletters risk-free with our 30-day money-back guarantee. Take the path of least resistance at TFNN, educating investors. Are you looking for a way to consistently add winning trades to your portfolio? Tom O'Brien is here to help. Tom O'Brien has been successfully trading markets for over 30 years. A frequent contributor to TD Ameritrade Network and CNBC, Tom O'Brien founded TFNN over 20 years ago to help educate investors just like you. Tom's daily market newsletter, Market Insights, is published every morning when the markets open to give you the competitive informational edge you need to succeed. These newsletters are packed full of Tom's advanced technical analysis and are geared to deliver comprehensive strategies for a successful portfolio. Get Tom O'Brien's newsletter, Market Insights, today and try all of our products and newsletters 30 days risk-free with our money-back guarantee at TFNN.com. TFNN, educating investors.
Call now, toll free at 1-877-927-6648. Internationally at 727-873-7618.
And we have returned. Like Patton to the Philippines. I know. I kid. Anyway, Chevron has gotten a waiver to deal with Venezuela. Of course, they're on the crimes against humanity list. So we had to give them a special biblical waiver to allow them to drill down in Venezuela. And that was granted on Saturday. You know, you really didn't move much on this. And I think the idea is mostly because how expensive it's going to be. And the history has always been you go in there, they're just going to nickel and dime you and take everything they can from you. And then eventually kick you out and use whatever you put in there for infrastructure. So not the kind of deal that, you know, you would think that you had had a big gap up yesterday on them being and having more access to more oil and selling stuff. But no, it didn't seem to do much in the way of that because of dealing with third world bosses down there. The history has just not been very good. I remember somebody was trying to talk me into some gold miner also down in Venezuela, and it had to be, I'm going to say 8-10 years ago, maybe longer. All I could remember was that I looked at it and I looked at Venezuela and I said, yeah, that's not the hill I want to die on. And sure enough, I want to say it was something began with a C, and it was reminded me of cold. I'll think of it here in a little bit. But it was kind of like Bitcoin. Just think maybe I'm better off not playing those things that I know eventually the music's going to stop and I'll be the one without a chair. But that is I. 877-927-6648. Another question is Generac GNRC. Is Generac worth anything down here at the lows being downgraded? It actually looks fairly good. You really need a storm or something to really pop this back up. I mean, if you were thinking about playing this thing, it doesn't look half bad. I don't think there's any chance in the real near future that it goes back up to the previous highs of $500. But certainly a confluence of events from natural disasters to man-made disasters for electricity, and just being able to sell so many of these inside homes over the last couple of years because of those both man-made and natural disasters. I don't think they're going to be able to duplicate it anytime soon. But yeah, you're getting the first thing. Now, I've always believed that the longer the pullback, the longer the consolidation. And I'm going to say 3 to 6 months. If this is really going to be something worth buying, more than likely it's going to hover out here for 3 to 6 months, bore everyone to tears, and then head back higher. Intel and AMD both making presentations of new products. Intel, just a handful of years ago, made fun of AMD for gluing all their processors together instead of making them on one chip. Well, Intel actually, not surprisingly, has shown and will produce its first chip that is based on what they call tiles. AMD called it chiplets. But making individual processors and then putting them together on a bigger die underneath, what AMD called fabric, so that you could glue a bunch of processors that and tailor it based on the yield of the individual chiplets instead of the yield of the major part of the processor, however it came out. And of course, AMD's won at least the desktop wars on that. So Intel's actually pushing this in their server part of the business, and it's not bad. The other thing I thought quite interesting with Intel's technology is something that I bumped into very early on, and that was that really kind of the late 70s and through most of the 80s for mini computers, maxi computers, high performance computers, pretty much led by a company called Cray, was all about plumbing. He wasn't that much better at building computers, but man, was he very good at keeping them cool so that they could run faster. He wasn't a slouch on computer design either, which made Cray one of the biggest computer companies to sell into the government, higher education, people with lots of bucks, IRS. I remember they had to be hooked up to liquid nitrogen, and so the computer club all went downtown to watch the christening of this wonderful Cray computer. They bought two. Well, they'd hooked up one correctly to the liquid nitrogen, but not the other. So we got to watch a $500,000 computer instantly melt before our $500,000. I think it was more than that, even back then. But it instantly melted. Well, Intel in the first quarter of next year is going to be producing water-cooled rack servers. And to this point, they have not. But the density is getting so high for the heat that they can't get it out using only air. So very interesting to watch plumbing come back into the electronics business. And of course, probably one of my biggest failures was my line of children's books, Fun with Water and Electricity. Probably not the best idea I ever had. But anyway, water and electricity, of course, probably not the best mixture. So they have to do it fairly correctly. And of course, I think there's been really about 15 years of effort for the home hot rodder of PCs for gaming in that field. They've been able to leverage a bunch of that. But we're probably going to see, I would imagine, that all companies, including Intel, AMD, are all going to have a 10 or 15 year run, just like Cray did in the 80s, where water cooling is all the rage. Yep, the old radiator business is out there. Mark says it beats his book series Mountain Climbing in Florida for fun and profit. We'll be back in a minute.
If you want to take advantage of this sector, now is the time to subscribe to my Gold Report. The Gold Report is a comprehensive look at the metals sector as well as the markets that move gold, which is the currency and bond markets. New subscribers get a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. Every Monday morning, I publish the Gold Report with coverage of gold, silver, bonds, the XAU, HUI, GDX, as well as more than 30 different mining equities. To see for yourself the types of profitable trades that are recommended within the Gold Report, sign up now by visiting TFNN.com. Don't miss out on the next great gold trade. Sign up today.
Sharpening your skills as an investor is like getting better at playing a musical instrument. You have to practice, sure, but you also need excellent instruction from experts. At TFNN, you'll get advice and guidance from the authority in technical market analysis. And it's not just dry, tedious text either. TFNN airs live financial content streamed live on TFNN.com and TFNN's YouTube channel with Tiger TV, live every market day from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. For free. Each host is an experienced trader and gives their take on the market while taking calls and questions live from around the world. From the moment the market opens until the closing bell sounds, Tiger TV has 8 different shows with expert hosts to help you make the right moves with your money. Watch online at TFNN.com or on TFNN's YouTube channel and become the investor you were born to be. TFNN, educating investors.
TFNN is excited about our new software charting program, The Art of Timing the Trade Charts. In collaboration with Tom O'Brien and using his best-selling book, The Art of Timing the Trade, Your Ultimate Trading Mastery System, David White has programmed an outstanding piece of software that will complement any trader's methodology. Using this first-of-its-kind program, The Art of Timing the Trade Charts allows you to scan thousands of stocks for Fibonacci formation setups, including Gartleys, ABCs, butterflies, and much more. The Art of Timing the Trade Charts is designed to help you when scouring the markets for stocks just beginning to form the trading patterns that many investors spend days, weeks, or even months searching to find. And right now, we're offering licenses available at only $79 a month. We are so confident that you're going to love this new charting software that will even give you a 30-day unconditional money-back guarantee. Don't miss out on this incredible new piece of software. Get your copy of The Art of Timing the Trade Charts today by visiting TFNN.com.
This segment is brought to you by Thinkorswim. For more information, just click the Thinkorswim banner on the front page of TFNN.com.
Yay, we're having fun today. Anyway, we're just kind of bouncing around light and variable, I suspect, until Powell does his little dance on the catwalk. But I'm not thinking there's a whole lot higher to get excited about until he speaks. And even then, that could just be the precipitate, hope I'm using that word correctly, my days of chemistry, to set maybe a low for this week before we go into fund buying. Of course, fund buying actually can happen the last few days of the month, the first 2 or 3. But generally, I'm going to say every month it seems like they wait longer and longer, thinking that they will get better prices. So you end up getting these kind of Roman candle fireworks displays at generally late in the cycle. But generally, it's depends on which ETF or fund you're having, but they'll have what they call a charter. And that charter will say that on day X, will be fully invested and will be invested somewhere, in the range of the last week of the month, the first 3 days. And of course, basically 80% of the ETF market or fund market says the last 3 days of the month, and maybe the first 2 days, and that are trading days, by the way, or the last 2 trading days, the first 3 trading days of the following month. So there's that 5-day period. But everybody, why they have to be 100% invested, they tend to still try to make out just a little bit better than the next guy by many times getting way too smart. But most of the time, they'd rather buy at a higher price and know that the low was in than try to buy at a lower price and sweat for a day or two. Yes, he speaks. Yes, he speaks Wednesday. So you got that, and then PPI next week. So I think they can't really wait for numbers next week, so they will get into it. But you probably Friday, I imagine 80% of the money will be in for fund buying. Probably the 5th, the last 20%. So we may have a little bit of that left over come next Monday. So the whole thing for me is how do I time what is going to be probably a fairly brief pop in the market. But if we continue to kind of just slide lower and watch the calls melt on the vine, that's probably exactly what I need to get some really juicy priced calls for Friday. Yeah, tomorrow, almost at this time, 1:30 from Peter in the Den. For Powell, that is. Anyway, last thing on Intel that I thought was interesting is a lot of these processors have memory, and they call it cache. And there may be several different layers of cache in a processor, and a lot of times we're talking about megabytes, like maybe 64 megabytes, and then maybe 128 megabytes, and then maybe 256 megabytes. Most people don't know that Intel for forever was the biggest manufacturer of memory, mostly because they had even those small amounts on every processor. So they were the biggest one. Well, what they kind of done is, after getting rid of their Optane memory division last year, is kind of make a hybrid version of that to go on the chips. And it's not just a little, and it's not a cache. It is going to be some ultra-fast memory in the neighborhood of 64 gigabytes, 128 gigabytes, maybe 256 gigabytes of memory on the chip. And there's a variety of reasons and servers why you want to do that. Some reasons are that you're running code that you want to get there. But kind of think of it this way. If you needed a lot of something and you worked downtown and you had to send somebody out to the suburbs to get it and then come back, pretty slow. But if you had a supplier, probably next door, you could get it a lot quicker. And that's basically it. By putting that memory on the chip and not across the bus of the computer, some operations that they're looking at are some in the range of 10 times faster than using the on motherboard memory, which will probably be in the neighborhood of terabytes in these servers. So is this huge amounts of memory? 128 gigabytes. No, but for the purposes that they're using for it, could make a huge difference in the processors. And this memory is not the kind that you get that, has so many write cycles. This is a very high quality write cycle that can be written almost continuously for 5 years. So it'd be interesting to see how these guys go. They also, Intel is pushing a thing on being able to unlock features in the processor that you don't get right off the bat. You buy the processor and you want additional features. Some of the new features that they're looking at too are better video compression techniques, and there's a couple of new versions out right now. I'd say 90% of people are using a standard called 265, but there's a couple of new versions of memory of video compression, and of course we're going to need to see. It may take 5 years to move over, especially for things like laptops or handheld phones. But it's tremendously useful to use a new compression. It works at much higher resolutions and is about 100% more efficient. And of course, at this point, big servers are all about one thing, and that is how much are they going to cost us? How much power are they going to use? How much is it going to cost to cool them with air conditioners and a variety of other things like that? This is the ongoing cost, because maybe one server may be $100,000, $150,000, but if it'll hold or handle 1 million of customers of yours, as long as it continues to do well, maybe that expense is not all that much. But again, you've got to be able to make sure that in the middle of the night, no one's doing anything. And at 8 o'clock the next night, everybody's looking at their bank accounts. You got to be able to handle a tremendous load almost instantaneously. But a lot of interesting things going on between Intel and AMD. AMD's new processors are no joke, especially at the server level. And I suspect that 90% that Intel has expected to hold for a long time probably slips more over the next year into the 80% range. And AMD, of course, this stuff is hugely profitable. And probably the biggest difference between AMD and Intel is that server part of it. But AMD is knocking on the door, and at least a handful of people are answering. Just going sideways here on AMD. We'll be back in a minute. If you have any questions about technology, give me a call, 877-927-6648.
Sharpening your skills as an investor is like getting better at playing a musical instrument. You have to practice, sure, but you also need excellent instruction from experts. At TFNN, you'll get advice and guidance from the authority in technical market analysis. And it's not just dry, tedious text either. TFNN airs live financial content streamed live on TFNN.com and TFNN's YouTube channel with Tiger TV, live every market day from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, for free. Each host is an experienced trader and gives their take on the market while taking calls and questions live from around the world. From the moment the market opens until the closing bell sounds, Tiger TV has 8 different shows with expert hosts to help you make the right moves with your money. Watch online at TFNN.com or on TFNN's YouTube channel and become the investor you were born to be. TFNN, educating investors.
Technology around us is changing every day. With so much happening, it can seem impossible to keep up with all the information. David White's investment newsletter, The Technology Insider, is designed to give you all the information you need to understand the technology that shapes today's markets and tomorrow's future. David White has made his living staying on the cutting edge of technology. His weekly newsletter will give you specific recommendations for value tech stocks, as well as entry prices, target prices, and stops to set for each trade. Dave delivers his weekly newsletters every Friday with updates throughout the week. You can get the Technology Insider at TFNN.com for only $37.50. Sign up for David's newsletter, The Technology Insider, and get an inside look at everything the technology sector has to offer. Try it risk-free today with our 30-day money-back guarantee. TFNN, educating investors.
Are China A-shares hot or not? If you trade China A-shares, now may be time to take a closer look. Trade CHAU or CHAD, Directions Daily CSI 300 China A-share Bull and Bear ETFs. China A-shares in either direction. Visit directioninvestments.com today. An investor should consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the Direction shares carefully before investing. The prospectus and summary prospectus contain this and other information about Direction shares. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, please contact Direction shares at 866-476-7523. The prospectus or summary prospectus should be read carefully before investing. An investment in the funds is subject to risk, including the possible loss of principal. The funds are designed to be utilized only by sophisticated investors such as traders and active investors. Distributor Foreside Fund Services, LLC.
This program is brought to you by Vista Gold, traded on the NYSE American and TSX under the symbol VGZ.
And see, what else do we have? Okay. Let's see. Okay. Question about the XLE. Yeah. He gapped down on Monday. There's just not much. It's probably going to hang around here at 90. I can't see a lot of people selling before the end of the year. So I don't think there's much going on in that. And of course, at any time we could have a jolt to the system and it would probably go through the roof. So I'm not a big fan of getting out of those if I've been in them for a while. Let's see. Okay. Got that. What do we have? Okay. Okay, we've got a couple earnings after the bell. I wanted to get to those. Let's see, what do we have here? And that's yesterday's. Let's get here. Okay, Wednesday, after market close. Why does this not want to? Okay, Tuesday. Here we go. Come on, after market. There we go. I don't know why that was goofed up. CRM. Okay, come on. Mr. CRM. There we go. Again, it's been very hard for Salesforce to compete on the size of the back end of the business, which has been really the web services business. And of course, Microsoft with Azure, Amazon with Amazon Web Services, Google with their own, they just don't have the scale. And I don't know if that's ever going to change. They have one thing that most everybody else didn't have or doesn't have. That is, still has a good amount of software and offerings that make it worth certain customers sticking with them at higher rates for the back-end servers. But I have no idea what these guys are going to say. The question is whether or not they're going to have desertions over the price of the servers. Just remember that why a lot of these companies will give away a great deal of software. That software comes with a hourly price for the servers that you rent from them. and the data that you move across them and the data that you put on hard drives from them. And again, Salesforce, much tougher for them to hit the same kind of prices of the other big three, even though they may have specialized software. And that may be enough. I don't think it's enough to drive them back up to previous highs. The more interesting thing probably for tonight is just how many people might be short CRM going in to tonight. Oh, let's see out of here. Let's take a quick look at that. Okay, not much in the way to days to cover. I'd like more than that. On the daily, not much shorting either. So there isn't a lot out here that says if they do have a mild surprise that they're going higher or much higher, let me put it that way. At least over the last few days on the dailies and on the monthlies, there's just not much out here. And that's where you always have to worry, because if they do whiff, there are not going to be a lot of shorts to actually buy on the way down. And if they do surprise, not that many shorts to drive them much higher. Of course, it's not that long ago that these guys were up at, right? At what? $311.75. That was November 9th of 2021. So we're, off 50% off. One of the other things I hadn't talked about this week is, was Jimmy brought up the price earning multiples, is just the overall S&P, not Salesforce themselves, but the S&P. And as of Monday, that would have come in at about 19. And throughout, or at least historically, the idea has been that you want to buy when the price earning multiples are at about 11, and you want to be a big time seller at 19. So we're at incredibly historically highly valued numbers on the S&P 500 and others. But yeah, CRM's price earning ratio is, he says, is 280. And that is just amazing. But again, most of the Amazon Web Services, Azure Web Services, is not a game of miles. It's a game of inches. And it's how often you can rent those servers out. And there have been some fairly decent companies coming along that make it easier for you to split your work up between different companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft. And these services look and see what the going rate is at any single time and can figure out how to save $5, $10, $15 an hour. And when you've got maybe 500 servers going, it can add up to a lot. But it also means there's almost always a rolling auction for the price of many of these companies like Amazon Web Services, Google Web Services, and Microsoft's Azure. But that's always interesting. I wanted to get to the other earnings, which I guess we'll get to on the other side. We've got Synopsys and Splunk after the bell tonight. Five Below, a lazy boy, always one of my favorites out there. Let's take a quick look at SNPS. SNPS. See if there's anything in that. And just kind of going sideways out here. You got two real big days, and you've gone sideways into this. Anyway, after the bell, we've got at least a few. None of these, I think, are going to move the market. We'll be back to talk about a few before the end of the show.
If you're looking for potential trading setups in the stock market, then Rocket Equities and Options Report is a newsletter you should try. Tommy O'Brien delivers options and equity trades when the markets present them using a combination of fundamentals and technicals. Sign up for Rocket Equities and Options Report today with a 30-day money-back guarantee so you have nothing to risk. For all the details and to start your subscription today, visit the front page of TFNN.com. TFNN, educating investors.
You might think that if you want to be successful at trading in the stock market, you're going to need a crystal ball. After all, it's impossible to predict the future, right? Like any endeavor in life, before you decide it's impossible, get some advice from the experts. You might find that it's not so impossible after all. For daily market overviews that give you direction on the key indices, selective stocks, and commodities, subscribe to the Opening Call newsletter at TFNN.com. The Opening Call newsletter is written by Basil Chapman, creator of the trading methodology known as the Chapman Wave. The Chapman Wave up-down sequence gives you an edge in identifying price turns, finding the peaks and valleys in stock prices. Get the Opening Call newsletter by Basil Chapman in your inbox every day. First-time subscribers also get a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not satisfied, let us know, and you'll get a full refund within 30 days of signing up. TFNN.com, educating investors.
Everything in the universe is governed by the Fibonacci sequence. This mathematical principle is responsible for everything from the most aesthetically pleasing artwork to patterns in the stock market. To stay on top of stock patterns you can take advantage of, sign up for the Fibonacci 24/7 newsletter at TFNN.com. When you subscribe, you'll get a weekly report from veteran day trader Larry Pesavento on stocks you need to pay attention to. And you can trust Larry's analysis. After all, he's got 45 years experience as a day trader. Larry will also provide daily charts, videos, and data on the key markets that he's tracking. Expect notifications from Larry on market movement you need to act on at any time. First-time subscribers also get a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not satisfied, let us know and you'll get a full refund within 30 days of signing up. Subscribe to the Fibonacci 24/7 newsletter today. TFNN.com, educating investors.
TFNN has launched the Tiger's Den, hosted at Discord. TFNN has been educating traders for more than 20 years, with live programming hosted by a variety of professional traders during market hours. The Tiger's Den, available to all tigers and tigresses for just $1 for the year. There's no catch or added costs when you join our community of traders. Sign up today and become a part of this educational community of traders. Just visit the front page of TFNN.com.
Catch Tom O'Brien, professional trader and educator, founder of TFNN. Also, a special guest on CNBC. Tom will bisect and dissect the markets. The Tom O'Brien Show, next on TFNN.
And we've been talking about a few earnings after the bell. For years, everybody asked me if Box was going to get bought out. I just didn't see any kind of fit. They've got about 6 days to cover. So, if they get bought out, there could be a nice run in this thing. I don't see much else happening other than that. And again, there wasn't a lot of reasons to buy it out before. In a declining market with higher interest rates, even less reasons to buy Box. Just kind of interesting that they continue to kind of tread water when many others have had problems in that vein. Anyway, Splunk also, SPLK, I see. They had an interesting earnings call last time. And of course, the big gap down on August 25th. That happened about 10 million. It kind of came back, brief test at that level, which is around $100, and then is kind of giving it up. It's mostly just going sideways out here. And of course, again, in a declining market, the money that many of the big guys, the CEOs, spend for software that is maybe not absolutely mandatory is the first to go. And Splunk had a really good run, but it's very tough to see they're getting a lot of headlines anymore. But another good one to keep an eye out for the core temperature of technology on expenditures that can be avoided in downturns in the market. So look for those after the bell tonight. Of course, the big movement will be tomorrow, about a little after 1 o'clock tomorrow, from Powell's discussions and what he says about being hawkish or bearish. Sell when you can, not when you have to.
Building wealth trading in the stock market seems impossible.